Jay here for Stretford Paddock. That's Joe Smith. This is the Paddock Podcast. Yes, we're back. And we've got loads to get through, haven't we, Joseph?
Yeah, tons.
Too much. We've got to talk about potential incoming midfielders. And are some of the midfielders we've already got going to stay? We can also touch as well on a couple of players that could be, going to be heading out the exit door. I think we didn't mention that before, but we can do.
Yes.
Pochettino's got to Chelsea. We'll get into that because at one point it looked like he was going to be United's next manager.
Yep.
So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll also talk about the usual stuff, Wally of the week. Bit of Paul Pogba news as well. We'll just talk about that. I know he's not a United player anymore, but we'll get into that. But the main story, the main topic is going to be about Arsenal United. This debate is doing the rounds of, of Arsenal bottled it. Is that harsh? Have we had a better season than Arsenal? And obviously, we want to hear what you guys think. So get involved in the chat and the comments and let us know your opinion on all that. Right. Let's start with, we'll get into who's had a better season in a minute. Let's start with Arsenal bottling the league.
Yeah.
Because that is a term that seems to upset a lot of the Arsenal fans, the idea that they bottled it. Now, I think they have broke some records this season. I think the first team that have been 7 points clear at the top of the table by Christmas or whatever it was and not won the title, because they're not going to win the title, are they? Let's just put that out there straight away.
Sorted.
Yeah. So there's that. I think they've been top for something like 90% of the calendar or whatever, 90% of the time of the league, the season. Sorry, get my words out. So I think, and then to not win it is another record. So they're doing well on that front. Now, to play devil's advocate, some people would say, yes, that is shambolic, awful, but no one, not even Ty from Arsenal Fan TV, expected Arsenal to win the league this season. So have they overachieved in that respect? Or do you look at it and go, 9 points from the last possible 21, being 2-0 up against the Scousers, 2-0 up against West Ham, drawing those games, drawing at home to Southampton, losing at home to Brighton convincingly, they have bottled it. Where do you stand on it, my friend?
Of course they've bottled it. Of course they have. You don't decide whether someone's bottled it by what the expectation was at the start of the season. That doesn't just stay the expectation no matter what until the end of the year. That's ridiculous. If United don't finish top 4 this season, we will have bottled it, despite the fact that a lot of people thought we wouldn't finish there at the start of the season because no one predicted what Chelsea would be. No one knew what Liverpool would do. People thought Tottenham would be better than they are. People thought United could have a decent season and finish 5th.
I said, you were discussing it, and I said, there is a scenario where United have a good season and finish 6th again.
Yeah, but that hasn't worked out like that because we've been better than we thought, and Liverpool and Tottenham and Chelsea have been worse than we thought. But United are now in a position in 4th where if we don't finish top 4, I will consider us having bottled it. And Arsenal fans have to do the same. Yeah. Just because you didn't think you'd be top, if you are top, what were they? 8 points clear, no, sit at a game in hand, with 8 games to go, and you don't win the league. And not only did they not win the league, they've now, I think, we're looking at the minute, they're 4 points behind, and City have got a game in hand. They're already miles behind. 5 games ago, you were 8 points clear. Now, when everything gets ironed out, you will be 7 points behind. That is shit. That is bottling it. You don't just get to keep the same expectations week in, week out, no matter what else happens in the world. Expectations change, and therefore, what happens at the end of the season, obviously, if you'd have said, well, Arsenal finished 2nd, and they were 3rd all season, and they finished 2nd last week of the season, you'd say, decent, good stuff. They've overachieved, if anything. Well, yeah, they've had a better year than we thought, but 6 games ago, they should have won the league. They were in a position to win the league, and they've bottled it. Of course they've bottled it. There's no other way to look at it.
Ignore context, can you?
Of course you
can't. Because, here's an example. A 2-2 draw at Anfield is not a bad result, right? If you look at it and you didn't know anything about it, and you went, a draw at Anfield, it's a decent point.
Yes.
When you're 2-0 up, it ain't a good result.
No.
It's not. 2-2 draw at West Ham.
And also, didn't Salah miss a penalty in that game?
I can't. Yeah, we did.
So, not only have you 2-0 up, you've basically got a free goal because Salah's they've had every chance to win that game.
100%.
And you've still conceded 2.
And then off the back of it, again, 2-2 draw away at West Ham. It's not the end of the world. It's not a great result, but it's not a terrible one. But you were 2-0 up, and Saka missed a penalty for you. Yeah. So I think I can't remember. I mean, it might have been 2-1 when he missed the penalty, but they should have won that game. Then you go to Southampton at home. Southampton, who are the only team in the Premier League who are already relegated.
Yeah.
They have been awful this season.
Terrible.
Now, people go, oh, Jay, Southampton drew us. Yeah, but we weren't in a title race. We're not going for the title. So, Southampton picking up points against us has got nothing to do with this.
No.
Arsenal were 2-0 down after 15 minutes, whatever it was. That's shocking.
Yeah.
That's
also,
not a good result.
To me, the definition of bottling it isn't just you could have done something and you didn't. That doesn't mean you've bottled it. And this term bottling it is very much like a modern sort of Twitter term almost, isn't it? It's only really crept in the last sort of decade. You never heard anyone say bottling it in the 2000s, really. Like, you maybe here or there, but it's like the go-to term.
Do you remember?
Now,
do you know what it reminds me of? I don't know if you're a bit young to remember Gary Cook. Gary Cook used to be the CEO at City, and he was insane. Like, he was just coming out with outrageous statements off his head. And when they tried to buy Kaka off Milan, Milan wouldn't sell him. I remember him saying Milan bottled it.
Yeah.
They bottled it, what?
Yeah, which was relatively unusual.
Yeah, it's an unusual term for a CEO to be saying about another club who refused to sell him their best player. They bottled it.
Yeah,
like, what are you on about?
They could have had this great thing where they lost their best player. Instead, they bottled it.
They bottled it. It's like, makes no sense.
But bottling it doesn't just mean you could have done better than you did.
Right. Okay, prime example. I'll give you an example when United bottled it, so I'm not being completely biased. 2012, 8 points in April. Yeah. We threw it away.
Bottled it.
We did.
You did.
That loss at Wigan and the draw at home to Everton, and then go to the Etihad and not turning up.
Yeah.
That's throwing it away.
Yes.
That is. Forget all the Aguero nonsense. We threw that away. We bottled it. We did. Yeah, I remember it well. Do you know what I mean? I lived through it.
Yeah.
So there's no denying that.
But, for instance, losing to Barcelona in the Champions League final isn't bottling it.
If you're not as good as the team you're facing, there's nothing you can do about that.
No.
But if you're 2-0 up against a team, 2-0 up against another team, playing bottom of the league, and you don't win any of those games, and then you get turned over by a team that are below you in the league as well, when you look like you're trying to rally round, because they did get a couple of good results. Chelsea at home, all right, you should be beating Chelsea. Newcastle away, a very good result. But then they've just flattered to the seas. And I got a lot of stick a few months ago. I said about Arsenal, I said they were overhyping themselves, the Arsenal fans, and the way the players were carried on. I thought there was big cracks in this squad.
Yeah.
And we clipped it up, and I had a lot of Arsenal fans in my mentions saying, "Oh, what are United doing in the league? You'd love to have all these players at United." And I was like, "Well, no, I wouldn't. I'd have Odegaard all day long." But I don't look at Arsenal squad and go, "That is amazing."
No.
And I think that compared to where they were meant to be at the beginning of the season, they have overachieved. But in the context of what they've done over the last 7 games, they've thrown points away. They've thrown it away.
So after that, they had that rough spell where they lost to Everton, drew with Brentford, lost to City. And then they stabilised, beat Villa, beat Leicester, beat Everton, beat Bournemouth, beat Fulham, beat Palace, beat Leeds, back to back. Some of those were really late goals, late winners and stuff.
The Bournemouth one was like 97th minute, wasn't it?
Yeah. But since then, drew with Liverpool, drew with West Ham. These are just in a row. Drew with Liverpool, drew with West Ham, drew with Southampton. Those 3 games are what cost them, by the way, not the Etihad. Yeah. Then they lost 4-1 at the Etihad, cementing it, but it was already done. Then they beat Chelsea, beat Newcastle, and then just got battered by Brighton. Like, those last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games are
9 points out of 7. 9 points out of possible 21.
Yeah, and this thing like, oh, we didn't expect to win the league anyway, so no one's allowed to criticise us. Yeah, we are, because I wanted you to win the league, so I'm allowed to criticise you.
If it was a choice between Arsenal and City, I'll have Arsenal all day long. Yeah. I don't care about a few numpties on Twitter. Yeah. I've got to go out my door and see City fans revelling in a 3 in a row.
Yeah, exactly.
And possibly a treble.
And earlier in the season, I was the other way. I was just on the side of City, but that was before City now looked like they could win a treble. I didn't, the way things were panning out.
I get it, especially for younger fans than myself. But for me, it was always about, I don't want City to win the league, and I'd take anyone other than the Scousers over him. Yeah. So Arsenal win the league, I couldn't care less about that in the context of them or City. But they've thrown it away, and they have. And I think we spoke about it months ago. Arteta's antics on the touchline, I thought that wasn't a good example to set. It looked like he was just losing the plot. The overhyping the players. 1 minute, Saliba's the greatest defender in the world. How can anyone think Varane's better than him and all this nonsense? Then he's not. He's bang average or whatever. Martinelli's great, then he's not, and he should be dropped for Trossard. Thomas Partey's the best central midfielder in the world. I was hearing from some of him.
Yeah.
And then he's faxing it in and getting bullied at the 8 yard or whatever, and it's like, he shouldn't even be starting. It's like, what are you on about?
We'll talk a bit about Keown and Neville and some of the stuff going on social media as well. But just on the players. So this season they've had 1, 2, 3, 4 players score 10 goals or more.
This is good. I'm not knocking that. It's impressive.
It is impressive. But I don't think they're going to repeat this. I think this is their best chance at winning a Premier League under Arteta, unless he stays there for a decade, But I don't think Martinelli is a bankable 15 Premier League goals a season. What is it? Almost all of his goals have come in the Premier League this year.
All of them have on there.
All of them. 15 goals, all of them in the Premier League. Saka will improve. I think he's very good. Jesus will consistently be inconsistent because that's what he's always been. And Odegaard, maybe he'll get 15 goals.
I think Odegaard's the one.
But if any one of them...
Pin my hopes on getting better. I think his trajectory... I know he was a wonderkind.
Yeah.
He's mint.
Yeah.
He's like just different class.
But if 1 or 2 of them have a bad season, they fucked it. Because they haven't got a 30-goal a season player. Like United haven't.
No,
But City have.
Yeah.
And Liverpool have. And I know United, this season we have got Rashford who's 29 goals, which is basically 30 goals. But
Excuse me.
You wouldn't say he's going to do that every season.
No, not
but
so.
I don't think Arsenal have got a player that can get 25 goals, let alone 45 goals.
As well, you name me an Arsenal midfielder who's been world class and stayed at Arsenal for his entire career in the Premier League era.
Well, I mean, not just have they not stayed there for their entire career, none of them have even stayed there through their prime.
Peak, yeah. You look at Petit, he got off. Vieira, he got off. Nasri, he got off. Fabregas, who was the captain, he got off when he wanted to go to Barcelona to win things.
Yeah.
And you can even extend it to past, not just midfielders. Henry eventually wanted to go win the Champions League. He went to go to Barcelona to do it. They couldn't even keep over the likes of Bakary Sagna and Adebayor.
No.
And, Van Persie came to United to win the title and got a Guard of Honour at the Emirates. Like, I would be shocked if Martin Odegaard spent the rest of the decade at Arsenal.
Yeah, me too.
Genuinely.
Yeah.
Like, he would be the first one they've had in the Premier League era who's completely world class and spent the prime of his career at Arsenal. Yeah. I know they've had him previously. They've had players like Tony Adams, whatever, who've been there, throughout Division 1 and the Premier League. But he would be the first one, I think. And also, he's not a gooner. He wasn't, born in North London and diehard Arsenal fan.
No.
He's probably going to want to go somewhere else eventually, especially if Arsenal aren't challenging. So I'd be surprised if they kept hold of him.
We've got Martin in the comments, who's I believe is an Arsenal fan. He's got a picture of Odegaard as his avatar.
Is it Odegaard? Is it Martin Odegaard himself? Is he saying? We got a scoop here. He's saying actually you're wrong. I am going to stay forever.
He said, "How do you lose to a City team with 94 points and a 40-goal striker?" I understand. We know City are very good. It's not a shameful thing to lose to them.
No, is it?
But the thing that is not shameful necessarily, but bottling it, is your last 7 games.
What are they on points-wise now,
You could have lost
Joe?
to City and still been ahead of them.
What are they on? Are they on 81 points?
81, which is very good. But like Jose got that.
He got 81. He did. I know they've got 2 games left, so they could finish on.
And at the minute
87.
they're averaging about 0.8 points per game. So
they
they'll probably finish on 83.
Yeah, but if you finish on 83 points on the position you were in, you've got to hold your hands up and say, you know what, we threw it away. Yeah, like, you did. Like, and I get the argument that Martin's making. I understand that because I just feel that, and I'm disappointed. I would have loved City not to win the league this season. I would have, and that would have been a 3-8 Arsenal winning it. Yeah, because you think say that on the chin. Because it's like, City might not have won it and Liverpool won it, and that would have been worse. So I am disappointed. Obviously not disappointed in Arsenal fans. And I'd much rather United win it, but we were never in it. But I might be wrong, but I feel like this was, I agree with you. I think this was their chance.
Like,
I think
how
a lot of players have...
26... Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say a lot of players, for me, like Thomas Partey had a real purple patch. Mm-hmm. Is he as good as people say? And he's got other issues going on that may end up scuppering his future. Mm-hmm.
And if nothing else, regardless of the outcome of anything like that, those things can affect and distract, even if it's not like he can't play anymore.
Well, he had a stinking little period during that, didn't he? It was against West Ham and against City. He was terrible.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen there. Like you say, Jesus is just inconsistent. Zinchenko seems to fall off a cliff at about the hour mark.
He gets subbed off every hour.
That's what you were saying. I mean, they have got a good young squad. They have got young players. Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard. I think a few of the defenders as well are quite young. You know, they've got a few youngsters coming through. So there's no reason, like, there is a good chance that some of these may progress and play. But you've got to remember as well, the thing that everyone kind of ignores is that City aren't going to get any worse, unfortunately. No. City will probably, next season, get more points than this season. Because they've had a few games this season, like Spurs away, Brentford at home, where they didn't really turn up. Yeah. And that's a rarity for them. Yeah. So there's every chance City start dropping 98, 99 points again next season.
Yeah. And also, the problem with
whatever
Arsenal,
they're on now, I don't know if they're going to get that this season. I don't think it's quite that high.
They've scored a lot of goals, but again, like I said, all of their top players have had, I think, except Jesus, had record goal-scoring seasons. Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli. All of them, like, maybe they will keep improving, keep peaking, but if one of them has a bad year, they're struggling. And also, they've conceded more goals than United. They've conceded more goals than Chelsea. Like, that is an issue.
You don't win a title with a defence that's leaky.
No, you don't win a title with a defence that's worse than 11th place.
Nah, Newcastle tried to do it under Keegan. Like, blow teams away 4-3 and 3-2 and all that stuff. It doesn't work. You come unstuck. And it did. Do you remember the game at Anfield where I think they lost 4-3? That infamous game where Keegan drops his head. Yeah. Like, you do. You need to get the 1-0s. You grind out the 1-0s and the 2-0s. That's how you do it. That's how you can get... Yes, you can have the games where you batter teams. But when you win titles, and I've seen my team win 13 titles, so I've got some experience of watching it. We've done it when we've gone away at Charlton and got that 1-0. Or gone away at Bolton and it's been a horrible game and you've ended up with a 1-0 win. Those are the games that help you get over the line. And City have done it in the past. Yeah. City will have that gritty 1-0 win where they didn't really hit top gear but they got the win. Yeah. That's how you can win titles. And leaking goals constantly... You can't just rely on your strikers or your attackers to get you out of jail all the time. Yeah. We'll move on from just the idea of Arsenal bottling it or not to talk about this debate that's going on about who's had the worst season, who's had the better season. Now, a lot of people are focusing on Gary Neville. Gary Neville sort of predicted that Arsenal were going to falter in the title race. I think a lot of us did, and they did.
He got a lot of stick for that, though.
He did.
To be fair.
He did. I mean, he kind of riles them up, though, doesn't he, Neville? Yeah. He riles up a lot of fans. And I think Arsenal fans have always got a bit of a bee in a bonnet with him. Remember when he did the thing with Arsenal Fan TV and there's a few other things as well. But yeah, Martin Keown's called him out. And no, I think Martin Keown's actually focused on Martin Tyler, saying Martin Tyler shouldn't be commentating on Arsenal anymore because he's so biased, which I don't really see it myself. I'm not Martin Tyler's biggest fan, but I don't really think that's a thing. But there's this kind of debate going on about whether Arsenal have had a better season than Manchester United, and whether it all hangs on this FA Cup final, whether if United win the FA Cup, then yeah, but if not, then no. And I'll be honest with you, I don't really see it like that. I think that if United end up with Champions League football and a trophy, that's better than just Champions League football, for me. And I don't feel that we've thrown anything away. If we lose the FA Cup final, I won't say we threw that away. I mean, obviously, we know we might be 5-0 up with 5 minutes to go and lose, then that we have. But going into that game, we're definitely second favourites. There's a reason City is so far ahead of us in the table, unfortunately. Yeah. So it's not a game where you're going, well, United should be winning that. We've already won a trophy, and we've, looking like we're good for Champions League football, and that's a good season. If you look at the season as well, the way it's panned out, we started off terribly, lost 2 straight games to give everyone an head start, including a 4-0 loss away at Brentford, and then rallied. And it's only, I think, from barring a few injuries and maybe a bit more investment in January, that we could have actually got going for a title challenge, but we never really did. Yeah. So I'm not going to look at this season as one of disappointment. I think it's been good, and I think going into it was what I was hoping for, a trophy in top 4. Because I don't think any of us thought this team with this new manager in his first season in the Premier League, with City buying Ireland as well, we're going to win the league. I don't think anyone thought that. No. I didn't see anyone who did anyway.
I honestly think it's a unique position where both team sets of fans, so us as United fans and Arsenal fans, are within their rights to say they've had a better season than the other one. Unless we win the FA Cup. If we win the FA Cup, we've definitely had a better season.
Especially winning it against
Undeniably,
City.
Yeah. That's stopping them winning the treble, winning the second biggest domestic trophy. United have definitely had a better season than them. Even if we lose the FA Cup final, it's right in the balance in it, because if we're honest with ourselves, the League Cup is the least acclaimed cup you can win, but it's a trophy, which is better than not winning a trophy. However, Arsenal fans have had 33 games of being in a title race, which is a good omen for next season. If you are an Arsenal fan, you're looking at the positives thinking, we're not far off this City team. Well, whilst we're looking at it thinking, this is probably the best it's going to get for him, which it probably is, you can see how you would be optimistic as an Arsenal fan. Whereas United are, unfortunately, 19 points behind Manchester City, which is a big gap to close regardless of a transfer window. I think United will have had a better season. But in fairness to Arsenal fans, which I don't say very often, I think saying 34 games or so of a title challenge is pretty good going, innit? And it is a huge improvement over where they were last season, but nothing quite, for me, beats silverware.
No,
they don't have a single day where a culmination of effort, a culmination of hard work, a culmination of good performances was rewarded with a day completely lacking any doubt, any problems, what about next week? On the day of the Carabao Cup final, there was no more like, oh, well, we've still got to worry about that. It was like, just enjoy it. Absolute fun. Anything with the title races, no matter how big a result you have, no matter beating United at the Etihad, for instance, at the Emirates, which is one of their biggest results this season, they can enjoy it, but you can't really celebrate it.
What do you think there is, just on that front though, do you think there was a little bit of premature celebrations from Arsenal? Because they seem to have this thing like pictures in the dressing room and you know, players celebrating, like, and I get celebrating a win, there's nothing wrong with that, you should always celebrate your wins, but almost like they felt like the job was done, or they'd done it, or, you know, like some of the pictures, I don't remember United doing that when we were winning titles. I don't remember us posing for those pictures and doing stuff like that halfway through the season. I think Fergie would have started snapping jaws if that had happened. I think, you know, there was almost an element like they felt like they were already there when they weren't. And I think that might have undone them a little bit. Yeah. I just think it
felt like there was a lot of like, I still think there's mentality issues there. I think Arteta was exploding every single week. Like, I understand you want passion, you want the players to go out there with, but you can't maintain like 100% levels of passion every week for 38 weeks. Like, eventually you start to crumble and fall apart a little bit, and which is what we've seen. You can't just, if we just go out and want it more than them, well, no, we need more than that. And eventually it felt like that was all they were relying on, was we're top of the league. You know, we'll sort of emotion our way to winning it, and you can't. Especially when City.
I think the Southampton game showed that, because that was probably where emotions got the better of him. You saw they went 2-0 down. They had that little huddle in the pitch, I think Zinchenko called it, which is ironic because then he was responsible for the next goal they conceded. And then at the end, it was like they'd stopped sort of playing and had just become almost unhinged. Like Jesus throwing himself on the floor, Thomas Partey shooting from 25 yards out. And you think, if you just actually get back to what you were doing 5 minutes ago, you can get back in this game. And he just sort of lost it a little bit, lost the sort of focus, I think is the right term. And I think that ended up costing them. Because I think had they got, that was probably the last chance they had of still being in it. Because had they got that win against Southampton, another last minute win, maybe that just translates to a bit of belief and a little bit of like, we can do this. Yeah. But then to end on a draw and then go, I think then they went to the Etihad and got turned over.
Just talking about that, I've sent Callum a picture that I want to put up. One thing that made me realise that this wasn't going to work out is, like you said there, is Zinchenko calling the huddle.
You've got a thumbs up here.
Zinchenko calling the huddle. I'll in a second, I'll give you the thumbs up when to put on. Zinchenko's the one calling the huddle. They got Jesus from City, two sort of winners, two mentality monsters, as this term, which is just such a mental thing to say.
Coined.
And these two are their biggest in dressing room. We've done it. We've seen it all before. And when they went back to the Etihad and played Arsenal, Zinchenko was literally ripped the piss out of by the entire City team after the full-time whistle. If we can get this up.
Oh, this is the first one, isn't it? This is the first game, this.
Yeah. They were going up to him, they were pulling his ears, they were like hugging him, squeezing. Do you know, like you do, like bullies do to the weak kid in school?
Did you see what he did? Because he kicked off with them. He kicked off with him.
Yeah.
I think he kicked off with, it might have even been Grealish. And he wasn't messing about, he was fuming. And then Kyle Walker came over and just picked him up and threw him.
Yeah.
And then picked him up again and threw him. Then you had I think there was Ruben Diaz or whoever it is, sort of grabbing him by his ears. Yeah. It was like
rubbing his head it's someone's little brother and we take the piss out of him. And he's meant to be the mentality monster that's going to win Arsenal the league. City are fucking taking the piss. You realise watching that he was the one in the dressing room that they all would have taken the piss out of.
It was bad.
And I was speaking to some City fans, because unfortunately there are a lot of City fans in my personal life. But they were saying, maybe if you're not a City fan, you don't know this. He always gets knackered. He has to come off or is shit in the second half of games all the time. And we saw it against Liverpool. Yeah, he just got absolutely rinsed. That can't be your biggest big man in the dressing room. Zinchenko, who's being little fucking getting nuggied and all that, getting his head flushed down the toilet by the City players after the game. That is embarrassing.
And also,
unfortunately,
that
is big thing, stuff like that.
As well. Because that was the earlier game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was in the Cup in the Etihad. I remember watching that. But there was the more recent game in the Etihad, where Ben White at the final whistle, for reasons that only Ben White knows and maybe Phil Foden, goes over to Phil Foden and kicks off with him.
Yeah.
You've just lost, and then he runs over to him and kicks off with him, and then he gets sort of thrown away as well. It's like, behave yourself, you nana. And you're like, what are you doing? And again, this sort of faux hard man image is just pathetic.
It's not good. And also,
doesn't help you.
If we're honest, the closest team that Arsenal were trying to emulate this season was Leicester. They weren't a Liverpool or a City who are 100 points and they look like they can do it week in, week out with world-class... Unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say it, Salah has been world-class for 5 years in a row.
Yeah.
And he started it by scoring 40 goals in a season and, 30 in the Premier League.
Yeah.
They haven't got anyone even remote... They haven't got anyone that's done... Well, half of that is the closest they've got.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? 15 in the league is the best they've got, which is obviously good, but you are doing a Leicester here. You're not the next big thing, and maybe they'll have a good season next year, but what I mean is they're not ready. If they're going to win this league, they have to do it by luck, by being an underdog, and by being almost sort of humble and giddy, rather than being here we are.
You make a good point,
fighting people off the full-time whistle. What are you playing at then? That's not them.
No, and you make a good point. Danny Simpson, who won the title last, sat in that seat you're in on the Brew, and we asked him, me and Steve said, when did you start talking about the title race that season? And he said, I think funnily enough, it was when they won at the Etihad.
Yeah.
And I think he said, Jamie Vardy said, we could do this.
Yeah.
That was late in the season. That was I think that might have been around March, April. Arsenal was talking about winning the title in January.
Yeah.
They would literally come back from the World Cup and it was all these tweets and these, celebrations, and it was we can do this. We're on for it. Now, yes, you've got to have confidence, but if you're talking about title races when you've not won a title since 2004 and you're talking about it in January, when we've just had a month off for the World Cup, you're fucking deluded.
Yeah. Few super chats. PJ says, settings not over yet. Season, I guess he has been corrected from. Season's not over yet. If we win the FA Cup and West Ham win the Europa Conference League, we've both had a better season than Arsenal. Interesting. Dolfan 345 says, Arsenal fans are trying to change the argument when saying they've had a better season. Arsenal are the better team, but United have had the better season. Abhinav Verma says, if there are City fans in your personal life, Joe, why aren't they at the Etihad? You're hallucinating. Maybe they are. MUFC Realist says, big up, lads. What's your take on the potential mic'd up refs next season? I think it's going to be fucking hilarious.
I think
when we realise that every single Premier League ref is thick as fuck.
Yeah.
And they really have got away with, because they're in a uniform and they look sort of vaguely kind of military-ish with their everything's nice in the book and the arm and the bicep and all that. I think they're going to be shit.
Heavy on Arsenal this episode, forgive us. But did you see the Arsenal game against Brighton? No. Was it Anthony Madley who was the referee? I refused
to watch it. Bobby Madley. Oh, there's two, isn't there?
Yeah, I'm sure it was Anthony.
Truly Madly Deeply.
Exactly. Thank you. Very underrated film, that. God rest Alan Rickman.
It's also a song by Savage Garden. Carry on.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's a banger, that.
Yeah. How's it go? We can't play it. Go on, sing it.
From the highest mountain, I wanna bathe with you at the ocean.
Come on, carry on.
I want that. Yeah.
We're gonna get copyright.
Yeah, we get copyright infringed for my awful karaoke.
It's nice that.
Thank you. Yeah, he right. Martinelli jumps into someone from Brighton whose name escapes me. Right, leads with his arm.
Jumps into someone from Brighton.
Yeah, it wasn't Danny Welbeck, so I don't care. Yeah. It's a yellow, really. Madley don't give anything, right? So Moises Caicedo thinks, right, I'm going to deal with this myself, blatantly. A minute later, does a what I would term as a sort of Aaron Wan-Bissaka trademark tackle, where you lead with your left foot round the back, but doesn't get the tackle off, just goes through him. But Madley now's thinking, well, I didn't book Martinelli, so I can't book Caicedo. Martinelli's so he doesn't book him. Martinelli's hobbling, but Brighton aren't finished with him. Someone else does something to him, and then he goes off injured. And that upsets Arsenal, and they lose it. But you think, I'm not making excuses for Arsenal, but that all came from him not doing his job. That's what happened. He lost control of the game early doors, players started doing it themselves, and it sort of went down a road it didn't need to go down.
This is completely unrelated, you've reminded me of it. Have you ever seen, it's a video that does the rounds every so often on like TikTok or usually a YouTube short with some of the worst music of all time over the top of it. But do you remember Emre, the Turkish footballer? It's sort of like turn of the tens. What does that mean? About a decade ago. Yeah. He racially abused someone in a game.
Right.
And then the next time they played each other, so he was given a 2-game ban, which is obviously awful and ridiculous. It was literally right in front of the referee as well.
Christ.
So the next time the two teams played each other, the entire opposition kicked the living fuck out of him. And there is a montage of all the fouls, which culminates in Didier Zokora just kicking him in the bollocks harder than you've ever seen anyone kick anything. It is one of the most chef's kiss beautiful videos in history. If anyone wants to watch it, just Google Didier Zokora literally kicking racism out of football, and you will find this montage. And it's nothing to do with that sort of like revenge on the pitch thing. They take matters into their own hands. And in this case, they take matters right into Emre's bollocks. And it is fantastic. And I like to watch it every so often and just have a smile to myself.
I love that. Yeah, but it's like Casemiro for Real Madrid, isn't it? Or Milner.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that one?
Yeah.
When Real Madrid are playing Liverpool. And he thinks, right, I can't remember who it is, he gets fouled by Milner, don't get a free kick, don't get a yellow card. So Casemiro literally, just goes through Milner, sends him absolutely flying.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
If you can't referee a game, you leave it to the players. That's what's going to happen. So going back to the original point, it'd be interesting to hear.
Just go back to the original point. I completely derailed.
No, it's all good. It'll be interesting to see what happens or hear what happens with the mic'd up refs.
Yeah.
Because I've always been a bit curious how they talk to each other and how that is.
Yeah.
Because you can sort of lip read the players a lot.
Do you know what though? Sometimes I do think that. Obviously, before saying they were all thick and all that, that's probably not true. I do think it will be interesting, and I think there actually is a chance that the fact that they are more present, more like seen, more they're actually we're hearing what they're actually saying. I think that could genuinely bring the best out of them. I think they'll have to follow everything to the letter, but I do think that you're going to get more. Okay, that makes sense, or like the refs having to be exactly right as often as they possibly can.
There is an element of that because I think I've seen it on when I've lip read certain refs where they'll say things like the player will be like, ref, and he'll go, I didn't see it.
Yeah,
I didn't see that.
Yeah,
like if you don't see it, VAR doesn't. You like if the player's in your way because you can't be omnipresent everywhere and see everything. I get that. That's a fair comment.
Yeah,
like that can happen. I know you meant to see, but it's not always possible.
No.
So that maybe that will add a bit of
even a little bit adding a human element to them.
Yeah,
because at the minute they're seen as these like mistake-making robots, aren't they? It's like, well, we got you in to be perfect, and you're not.
I'm just looking forward to if the mics are near players, close enough to players, hearing the players.
Well, that's another point. That's another point.
Yeah.
I think we're going to start seeing a lot more yellow and red cards for players abusing refs because in the past. You see it all the time. What the F are you on about, you stupid
do you remember Marcus at Brighton the other week? Me and you were laughing. Because Cameron went to him and he sat on, he's been fouled again by, I think it was Caicedo again.
Yeah, on the touchline.
And he went, he turned to the referee and went, are you taking the fucking piss?
Yeah. But I think now...
5 times he's done that to me.
And in the past, refs could go, yeah, sorry about
that,
Marcus.
All right, come on, get on with it.
They know there is audio footage of them being abused. Yeah. They can't really stand up for it,
I don't know, though. You'd have to red card everyone. Everyone swears at the refs.
Get them red carded then.
I'm like, come on. They all do it. Not just United, like every team has players that are shouting at the ref. You see it.
Yeah.
You see it. I think there's you can get away with swearing at the ref. I think if you insult them, If you say like you're a, or
if you
you
say
question
what
their
the F was
integrity
that,
or something like, there's a line where it becomes dissent. I'm not sure what it is, but there's a way of sort of wording it where if you say something, it doesn't even have to be that offensive, but if you say it in a certain way, you can get a red card. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with that.
I can't wait for Mike Dean to announce that he's coming back out of retirement, by the way, because he's been desperate for this for years, hasn't he? Any way that he can sort of shine on the big stage. I mean, we can't say it. We're literally sat here doing a podcast, but Mike Dean would love to be mic'd up.
To do that. I don't, you're not meant to go into the referee and to be the star of the show. Yeah. It's not meant to be the Mike Dean episode.
When, what was it? Not Andre Mariner. What's he called? Mark Clattenburg, where where's he reffing now? It's not in Europe, is it? Is it
D-Wing in strange ways? He was shocking him.
But he basically did interviews and stuff where he's Geordie, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, where he kind of said, like, sometimes you just even it up. Sometimes you just guess.
Didn't he say that he didn't...
I got a bit scared, so I gave a bit more
extra time. Said what was the game that he got? I think there was one where Danny Simpson got in trouble, didn't he? Didn't Danny Simpson... Was it talking about Danny Simpson? Didn't someone... I can't remember if it was Danny Simpson or what game in trouble. Someone said that Clattenburg had said something to them about not... what's this? This is like an eye tester. The producer, Egypt. Clattenburg's met referee in Egypt. Someone said that he told them he'd deliberately not made a decision or he'd not given a card when he should have done for whatever reason. I can't remember the reason he'd given, like not to affect the title race or something. And it was like, what? Really? Because I think it might have been when Spurs played Chelsea and he should have sent players off and he didn't because it was the title decider. If Spurs lost that game, then Leicester won the league, and he didn't want to do that. Because he didn't want that to become the story, which is wrong. You might just referee the game as you see fit.
Sorry, I've just Googled that. And there's a headline in the Mirror from a couple of months ago saying, ex-Premier League referee Mark Clattenburg forced to flee Egypt after a series of attacks. Who is he? The ancient Sumerians.
Nice.
What do you mean forced?
Ancient Sumerians. You don't get that on every other football podcast.
Forced to flee Egypt after a series of attacks, like he's Moses or something. What the fuck? That's horrendous. Forced to flee Egypt. That's the most Old Testament headline I've read in about fucking...
That's going to be my tweet later. I'm going to have a picture of Moses, a picture of Matt Clattenburg, and in the middle it's going to say fleeing Egypt.
Forced to flee Egypt.
Forced to flee Egypt with a handshake. Do you know what I mean? Like, what is that?
How is that a thing?
Do you know what I mean? He's like President NASA. We'll get into other things because we've got a few before we wrap up. Poch to Chelsea. Happy?
Yeah, I think they're going to be back in... He's another manager who I think struggles with big names and big talent and has never really...
I think Poch is a 7 out of 10 manager, mate.
Yeah.
I think he's good, not great.
Yeah.
I think you can't ignore what he did at Spurs. I think they finished 2nd and 3rd and 4th under him. Yeah. Obviously got to the Champions League final. Didn't win out. An element of not getting over the line in certain big games when they should have done. But I think they probably need a bit of that. They probably need a bit of an even keel. Yeah. And I think he could get them top 4. If they finish 4th next season, that'll be job done. Because they've just got to get back to a bit of normality. Because at the minute, they are how not to run a football club.
Horrendous.
So if he comes in, stabilises them, gets some Champions League football, and also in the summer, they've got to sort the Reds out because they've got 47 players, whatever it is, on the books. They've got just too many.
1,000.
Like players in corridors and all that. It's just like ridiculous when they're having team meetings. So he needs to sort that out. Maybe they can, but I don't look at that and worry about Chelsea. Even though I've just said they can finish top 4, and you can argue, well, we're going for that space. I don't think they're going to be a real force next season.
I think they could, depending on what season United have in the next 2 years, I think they could cost us a top 4 spot, but I don't think they could cost us the league, if you know what I mean.
That makes sense.
Like, maybe they could beat us and it would make the difference, but I don't think that I see them, like you said, challenging for top 4, but not challenging for the title.
I think United are kicking on next season. I do, bro. I think people forget how hard it is in your first season when you're dealing with a mess you've inherited.
Yeah, especially it was a mess.
It was.
There's no
top to bottom, and you won shining star, your top scorer. Didn't want to be here, and he left.
Like, think of
he had to leave before anyone goes, well, you sold him. No, he had to leave.
No,
he made that clear.
Think of the things that he's had to deal with this season, Ten Hag. Just for most people, just the club being sold generally would be enough to derail a season, or could be, as we saw with Chelsea last year, and this year. Like, that whole process is unsettling, to say the least. That's the least of his worries so far. Our most famous, most high-profile player, who was the only player, or one of 3 players ever, and the only one at the club who had won like a Ballon d'Or, won the Champions League with Man United, like a huge name, Cristiano Ronaldo, completely threw his toys out the pram, didn't have a single second of pre-season, then basically forced us to move out halfway through the year, leaving us with...
Well, he did. He had that game where he left early.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Which is even worse.
Leaving us with one striker. We've also got the situation with Mason Greenwood, which is complete... I can't think of another top team that has had a situation like that hanging over them for as long as he's had. That's a unique position to be in.
Yeah.
You also
through he's got nothing to do with him. Like he didn't make a decision over Mason Greenwood when he arrived. That was already done for him.
Yeah.
So he inherited that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's not like you can go, well, he should have done this. He didn't have a choice. He got here and Mason Greenwood was spending a charge and was suspended, and rightly so.
Yeah.
So it's like, right, well, I can't change that now.
No.
We've got to wait and see what happens.
Also, the other biggest name in the dressing room, Paul Pogba, has just left.
Yeah.
So yes, maybe he wasn't right for Man United, which obviously we're seeing now he wasn't, and we'll talk about him in a second. But he's still our most talented player probably last season. He's gone. Cavani has gone, who again things went downhill, but he's a goal scorer. Like this team was embarrassing to end last season. Players like Shaw and Rashford were the worst they've ever been, and he's now got them playing the best they've ever been. Like there's so much to consider, and we finished, or I think even if we finish 5th, which would be us bottling it, we've still won more games than any other Man United manager in their first season and won a trophy.
I agree, and I think as a manager, when you come into a club like that, which is in such turmoil, you have to make some immediate decisions and sort of stick to them. And he did that. I don't think you've got enough time to go, well, I have to wait and see what happens with him, and wait and see what happens with him, wait and see what happens with him, wait and see what happens with him. So he came in, he went straight away, Tellez, Bailly, forget it.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Some would argue Eric Bailly, especially pre-season, you might have kept him around.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of people out there said, I'd have kept him. No, forget that.
Speaking of, I would have kept him, Dean Henderson, James Garner.
Out straight away. De Gea's my number 1.
Yeah.
Maguire and Bruno are my captains. Like, he made those swift decisions.
Yeah.
Because you have to act fast on certain things. You can't have 80 things on the go at once, like, I don't know, we'll wait and see what happens with that. No, you've got to make some quick decisions, and then you can sort of do what you need to do. His signings, almost to a man, have been bang on. Getting the best out of the players you spoke about, bringing him through the likes of Garnacho and getting a tune out of him, winning that silverware, looking good for Champions League football. He's got nearly everything right. It's not been perfect. Some of the away results have been shocking, and he's got to, hold his hands up there because he has to take responsibility for that. But as a work in progress, which is what we are 100% moving in the right direction. So I think that next season, I expect us to be better and more consistent than we've been this season. And if we are more consistent, then that is a title challenge. I'm not saying we're going to win the title. I don't think we will. But we can be in that mix. We can be in that conversation. And that is really what we should be doing next season. I know people go, second season though, Jamie. Yeah. Yes.
My prediction for next season is we will have 11 players good enough to win the league.
Okay.
I still think we'll be too thin if and when injuries come.
There's only Leicester and even Liverpool who've done it without really any injuries in them.
Yeah.
Like Liverpool just didn't get any injuries.
I think we could be capable of a Leicester season or a Liverpool season.
And we need I understand that. Yeah. Like I think if you can keep everyone fit, then but it just don't happen, does it?
No. This year I think if we'd have kept everyone fit, we could have finished second, because I think Arsenal are collapsing that badly. Because at the minute we'll be 69 points, but we're 12 points behind them. I think we could have got 12 more points this season had injuries saved us.
Yeah.
But next season I think, but I don't think we had the quality to win the league regardless of who stayed fit. Whereas next season I think we might.
There's probably a good argument, and it's probably going to happen that Martial moves on.
Yeah.
And Martial is a flawed individual, to say the least, in terms of his football. I don't mean off the pitch. I mean just his football. But he scored 2 Premier League goals in his last 4 games, whatever it is. Weghorst hasn't scored any. Like, if Martial stays fit, he's probably worth a few points to you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I know he's not everyone's favourite, but that's your main striker, and he's been out for almost the entire season. And because you've not been given any budget, and because Ronaldo's gone, the striker you've had to get on a free, who we all like because of his hard work and everything, can't get you 1 Premier League goal.
No.
I mean, can you imagine anyone else in the top 4 having to deal with that? Because I can't.
Also, just as a side point, do you know when you chat to people who occasionally say, put me in this team and I'd get this amount of goals.
Yeah.
Weghorst is proof that because he's better at football than anyone you've ever played with, anyone I've ever played with, anyone most of the people at home have ever played with, isn't he? He is a better footballer than...
I've not played football with anyone who's scoring 2 goals in a World Cup quarter-final.
Exactly. And yet...
Although I have shared a pitch with Paul Merson and Chris Waddle, but that's not the same.
Not bad.
Yeah.
And yet, he cannot score a Premier League goal. So if that whole thing of put me up front for Man United, I'd get you 6 goals, or people genuinely have this conversation where they're like, honestly, if I'm on this, if I'm doing that, if I'm starting every week, I'd get 5 goals for United. You would get fuck all.
Yeah.
You would get nothing.
Yeah.
And Weghorst is proof of that.
Yeah.
He is so much better than anyone you ever played with,
Yeah.
and he has got nothing in the Premier League.
Yeah.
This whole thing of, just start me. I mean, you just get enough chances. No, you wouldn't, because every centre-back just goes bye, and pushes you out of the way.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's only a small thing, but it does make people like, you put me up front for City, I'll get you 6 goals. No, you wouldn't. You get no goals. Because you're still playing, even though you're playing with De Bruyne, you're still playing against Varane or against fucking Van Dijk.
Yeah.
Like, you aren't getting a single goal.
No.
And Weghorst is proof of that.
You've done it right. Have you ever played like either 5-a-side or 11-a-side or whatever with a semi-pro or someone who was on the books at City 10 years ago?
Yeah.
I've got mates who I play 5-a-side with who were on the books at clubs and never made it, never got into the academy team.
Yeah.
And they're mint.
Yeah.
They're unreal.
They dominate a 5-a-side game.
They do. You have to balance it by giving the other team 5 of the best players against that one because they're so good. Or have you ever played with someone who's like playing, at Curzon Ashton or somewhere, or somewhere semi-pro? They're mustard.
Yeah.
They're not Premier League level.
No.
You play in the Premier League, you're not getting anything.
You put Weghorst in that 5-a-side team, he does what he wants.
Yeah, of course he does.
Even though he's 6'7" and he can't touch and he can't head, he's got the best touch there.
Yeah.
He's the best in the air.
Yeah,
He's got the best dribbling. He's the best passing. He's probably the best goalie there.
Yeah.
Because they're just on another level.
Yeah. I agree. I agree completely with that.
Yeah.
And that's a sort of cross that Erik ten Hag has had to bear. We'll just move on quickly because there's a couple of other things I want to talk about before we get on to Wally of the Week. You're not in a rush, are you? You don't do anything? You happy to chill with us lot? Chatting and that?
I'm still living high off my driving theory
Can we make it? I didn't know if you wanted to tell everyone, but big shout out to Joe Smith here today. Can we get a single on Joe? Don't put your address on there if it's on there, son. Joe Smith has passed his theory test, and also, in fact, pass it here. Let me read this out.
I'm scared now.
Is it there? Is it right?
I don't think it is.
No, it isn't. I can't see anything.
Ignore the hazard perception.
I want to just. Can we go to my single? I don't know if this will pick it up. Can you see that there, where my fingers are? Can you see it?
Bring it back to its level with your head, so people can.
If you can, I'll read it for you. It says on the multiple choice part, the pass mark is 43.
Yeah.
You scored 50 out of 50. You absolute geek. Before we get too jubilant about what is an absolutely amazing achievement, well done.
Thank you very much.
We've just had a bit of... Is this breaking news?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and we were just about to start talking about this kid, Sabitzer ruled out the rest of the season with a knee injury.
Shit.
That is shit. Because he would have featured for the rest of the season, probably would have featured in some capacity in the cup final as well, and now won't. Because he's out, and that's going to cast doubts on whether he's going to get a deal, permanent deal as well. Because
absolutely, yeah,
you're missing the very end of the business end of the season, and there's decisions to be made. Especially when I had a story in the news this morning that we've been linked again with Adrian Rabiot, who apparently Erik ten Hag really likes. So that is annoying.
Yeah, should we talk about that? Because Rabiot's would be coming on a free. He's 28, so a couple of years younger than the other players we've got, and he's just turned 28 as well. So he's got a few years comfortably left in him. Probably got a 5-year deal left in him.
Yeah.
Sabitzer with a meniscus injury, by the way, and not that it's the same or the pressure is the same. I currently have a meniscus injury, and I couldn't play 5-a-side football, let alone fucking top flat football.
That. So you can relate to things when you've had that injury yourself, so it's always worth mentioning.
But not that, So that's the same reason I'm not playing for Man United, is what I'm saying. But that's gutting that, and not just because I think he could have done with a couple of games to really just cement that move.
I think the jury's out. I'll be honest with you. I don't think it's nailed on.
No.
He gets a new deal. I think, and forgive me, I always get this wrong. It might have been Kalanko. It might have been someone else who wrote for The Athletic about him. And I
think it was Kalanko.
Was it? And there is this element of, has he done enough?
Yeah.
Because you could argue the case for and against. and like the Arsenal point you're making, and whether United or Arsenal had a better season, I think both sides of the argument are almost equal. I think if you're standing here going, well, Sabitzer's class, look at his touch, look at the way he carries himself, look at the way he's on the ball, he's that type of player you need, I get it. If you're saying he ain't done enough, though, he hasn't, a couple of goals in the Europa or whatever it was against Sevilla, yeah, great, but there's not been enough games where he's really sort of put his imprint on the game. Yeah. There's a case there. Personally, I would keep him, but now I don't know, because I don't know if that's going to scupper him. It's a shame.
Yeah, it's
because
tough.
The kid's had it tough. Came from Bayern Munich, wasn't really getting in the first team at Bayern Munich, although he did play about 23 times from this season. Come to United, did quite well, and now that might be the end of his United career. I hope it isn't, but it probably is.
Yeah,
in my opinion, probably. I think it is actually.
Yeah, this is separate to my judgment of Sabitzer. I'd take Rabiot on a free.
I don't know. Me and you spoke about it, didn't we, in the summer when we were linked with him? You were sort of saying, was it a bit of a unfair reputation?
I don't think it's necessarily unfair.
Or not off the pitch, but is this reputation of him being a bit of a
I think it's
at times, for want of a better word.
Basically, the general gist of it is that in the past he's been seen as a bit difficult, and his mum's been seen as a bit difficult. But that's also been largely
weird statement, isn't it? I'm not having to dig at you because I know it's relevant, but his mum's been seen as a bit difficult.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard anything like it? I understand where you're coming from, but we might not sign this player because his mum's offered head. What?
Yeah, she's his agent, and also I think she gets a bit of unfair stick, to be honest.
To be honest with you, right? Your mum is your agent. You're asking for trouble.
Yeah.
Like if United offered me 10 grand a week, right? My mum was my agent. She'd think I was worth more. She'd be like, "You're not taking that. You're the best player ever. What's the matter with you?"
I've rejected it.
Yeah.
Obviously.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
It's mental. They're offering me a contract, mum. I'm terrible at football. No, you're not. I've always said to you, I believed in you. You're better than that. What? So yeah.
So
mums love their kids, don't they?
Yeah. There's a bit of controversy about he signed professional contract in 2012. She wrote a letter to the club, requested a transfer. But agents request transfers for their players sometimes.
She's handling Mino Raiola.
I know. Shit. I think some of it is literally I think some of it is vaguely misogynistic. I think that if this was his dad or his uncle or his brother or just
most dads
an
do
agent
taking involvement in their kids' careers. The
idea of handing a transfer request is hardly, oh my God, she's a lunatic. This other thing about she was chatting, supposedly, which no one knows, there's no footage of it, chatting to Mbappe's mum, saying, your son just had a shit shot, I hope you're going to tell him off for that. Again,
can I just
it's
say,
hardly fucking
can I just say, right?
Guy Fawkes, is it?
Forgive me if this comes across as some sort of, anti-French comment here, but if you look at France, their squad, their camp, when they go to tournaments...
Their sort of track record.
Yeah. It is off its head.
Yeah.
You've got coaches flying home halfway through a tournament, flying back, players picking the team, players' parents fighting on the touchline. It just goes off in the French squad, and it has done historically. Yeah, it's just one of those things. So don't look too much into that. Yeah, look at what is going on with Paul Pogba. I mean, I know that's an extreme, but there's been issues there where his brothers accused him of putting a voodoo hex on killing Mbappe and all sorts. There's just all sorts going on.
Yeah.
So, I'm not too keen. You have to trust Ten Hag to a certain degree. And if he fancies the kid, get him in.
And I think as well, it would be on
he had a good World Cup, Rabiot, although I don't like buying players off the World Cup, but I thought he was very good.
But again, I haven't watched a hell of a lot of Juventus this season. I know they've had a poor year by their standards, but they've finished quite strong. I think they're up to second now. This has supposedly been his best season for Juventus. I think he's looked really good this year.
Do you know who
according to people who have watched a lot more Italian football than I have. So that's promising.
Do you know who we need in midfield? We need the Fred that came on at the weekend.
Yeah.
That Fred that came on
Kante, you mean?
Against Wolves was as good as I've ever seen. He was just amazing.
It was immaculate.
It was. He just came on and just said, right, I'm taking over this game. And just dominated it for 10 minutes.
And you compare that to the Fred that came on against Tottenham,
Spurs,
who was me. How can it be against Wolves? He come on and he's literally Kante in 2017.
He was amazing.
Against Tottenham, he was Stephen Housen.
He literally, changed the entire momentum of that game when he came on. Because it was like Wolves gave up because he just kept getting hold of the ball, getting himself out of trouble when players were around him, creating chances and just stifling their attacks. He was unreal.
Yeah.
And I was like, who's this guy? If he played like that every week, he'd be starting for Manchester United and he'd be Brazil's best player.
Yeah.
It was just unreal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll have Rabiot if the manager fancies him. Quickly, because I know we're pressed time. Paul Pogba.
Yes.
We're just going to talk about him because he spent a long time at United. I know people get fed up. Oh, Jim Pogba, I'm such Pogba. He is relevant because he only left us in the summer. He's barely played for Juve. He's just got another injury.
Yeah, well, just up from BT Sport, Juventus midfielder Paul Pogba's first competitive start in over a year. So the first time he started for Juventus lasted only 24 minutes before he was forced off, injured against.
So his last start was it for us?
Yeah,
obviously. So that it's a shame.
Yeah,
it's a shame because you were making this point a few months ago, and I think it's a valid one of how long is he going to carry on? Like, I know he's only 30 and he obviously looks after himself. He's physically, in terms, I don't mean injuries, but his physique and the fact I don't think he drinks and I don't think he eats. I don't know him personally, obviously, but he seems to be quite a healthy guy, if not fitness wise. In terms of his injuries, isn't great.
Yeah,
but especially with all the shenanigans that's gone on with his brother and this kidnapping thing, which is awful. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. I ain't got a bee in my bonnet about Pogba anyway. But you've wondered, like, is he going to carry on for years and years, or is he going to get to a point where he's going to go, I'm done with this?
I don't see him maybe Italy's slightly different, isn't it? Because you do have that longevity factor of you Dzeko and Higuain and
I don't want him to
these sorts of players who
like that. And I think it'd be a shame.
I don't see him playing at the top level in 2 years.
You wonder his mentality, like, because you keep getting injured. You've had all this drama. Are you going to get fed up? Yeah. So we'll see. Just before I wrap up, Wally of the week.
I'm going to go Brighton again.
Brighton and Wally of the week?
I'm sick of him.
This is interesting.
Well, I hate that I don't like that they turn up against us, then get battered by Everton, then turn up against Arsenal. Like, you just turn up in the big games. You can fuck off with that. I'm sick of everything that they do, people just get on their knees for because it's Brighton and aren't they dead cool? Like they used to do with Napoli, like they used to do with Dortmund, like they used to do with Southampton 10 years ago when Poch was there. Do you remember? They could do no wrong and everyone they signed was incredible. I'm sick of it. I hate these hipster teams who... They're doing incredibly well. I'm not knocking them. Very good manager, very good players. Recruitment looks great. But like people go in, they've signed James Milner. What a signing. Someone who's too shit for the shittest Liverpool midfield in a decade. Yeah. And we're going on like, Brighton have done it again. No, they haven't. He's fine. He's a bang average Premier League player. And it annoyed me that they beat us, and then immediately, because they'd put all the effort into beating United, completely collapsed against Everton, who at that point hadn't won a game in like 8 games. It wasn't like Sean Dyche bounce. They were on an awful run of form and then destroyed Brighton. And I'm just sick of like everything they do being absolutely lauded. And they've done really well, and I'm proud of them, and I get it. I like it when a team goes from being a championship team to being a concrete Premier League team, but just everything they do gets so wanked into the ground.
Isn't that song by Brian Adams? Anymore. Everything they do gets wanked into the ground.
God, they're just like...
It's number one for about 18 weeks.
I'm just drained by it.
I love that.
There's always a hipster team in Europe.
I love the revision.
Brighton at the minute.
Everyone loves Brighton. Joe hates them. I'm all for it. I'm here for it.
Who's yours?
I'm going to go, right, and... sometimes I say I take no pleasure in saying this. Yeah. Well, this is the opposite. I do take pleasure in saying this. And it's Leeds fans. And I'll tell you why, right? One of my biggest bugbears about social media or, online stuff in general, and just to show you I'm not completely biased, I hate when United fans do it. Attacking your own players, threatening your own players, abusing your own players because they've put in a performance you're not happy with. Yeah. Like, it's beyond stupid. If you've done that to your own player, and I don't just mean like, Andy Tate said, I tweeted him about that. I wasn't abusive when he tweeted Tom Cleverley or whatever. I mean, if you've abused or threatened or, laid into someone or their family because they've put in a performance or missed a penalty that you're not happy about, you're a knobhead. Yeah. There's no two ways about it. You just are. And Patrick Bamford missed a penalty for Leeds the other day. And he got death threats apparently, and his family got abused. And this is also the same game where we saw a Leeds fan get on the pitch and go for Eddie Howe. So they're covering themselves in glory. And do you know what? When Leeds got promoted, I was glad because I missed that rivalry. It's a good rivalry. They're one of our fiercest sort of enemies, and I'm all for that. We've had some great games against Leeds, but I'm done with them now. Let them get relegated, and I couldn't be bothered. I wouldn't lose any sleep if we never played them ever again. Yeah, because I just think that's just awful. Like, sort your lives out. Yeah. What are you doing that for?
No.
Like, oh, that player, he's not playing well enough, so I'm going to abuse him and threaten him and abuse his family. That'll sort that out. Do you know what? They deserve to go down and they can do one. Good riddance to bad rubbish. So that's my Wally of the week.
Completely agree.
Anyway, make sure you are checking out all the other videos. We've got a load of videos up. We've got the reaction from the game against Wolves. Thank you. I almost forgot it. Was so, memorable. We've also got Uncensored coming up this week. We'll be looking ahead later on in the week towards the Bournemouth game. We've got a big interview as well this week with a top-tier journalist. Don't you worry about that. I'm not sort of overstating that. We really have. Joe, where can people find you?
Joe Smith 93 on Instagram and on Twitter as well.
On Twitter. Go and check out the Sloppy Joe's podcast as well. Very, very funny podcast.
Thank you.
You know where to find me as well, so make sure you're hitting like, share and subscribe. That's been Joe Smith. I'm Jay Moy. This has been the Paddock Podcast. Thanks for watching.